Good morning, guys. How are you? So, today, after we talked about the Protestant Reformation and the bloody warfare that took place between the Catholics and the Protestants, we're gonna move to talk about a totally new era, and our destination will be France. And from France started the first and the bloodiest revolution of all European history, the French Revolution. As you can see, I'm videotaping from the mobile. I'm doing screenshotting, so I hope you feel comfortable with this video way more than the other videos we did before or the other voice notes. So I'm opening the slides from my own mobile, and of course you can refer to the slides on your laptops later. Okay, right. So as we can see here, the French Revolution, actually, if we look at this picture, is the bloodiest revolution that ever happened in the history of Europe. Why is it the bloodiest? Because at that time, the king was very, very authoritarian. He was such a dictator. He didn't care about his own people, and the king during the time was Louis XVI. If you remember, we talked about this king before in the part of the absolutism. And we mentioned that this is the first king whom appeared with the idea of the absolutism in the 16th century. So this king actually was the worst king that France lived with ever. He didn't care about his own people. All he cared about his own throne and the money he gets. So what happened is that the French Revolution actually outbroke in 1787, and it continued till 1789. So it means that it took 12 years. The French Revolution lasted for 12 years. But this is not the only thing. The French Revolution came to change every single notion Europe used to know when it comes to politics. So back then, Europeans didn't have any individual rights and didn't have anyone to talk on their behalf. So the king would just rule the kingdom or the country, and he can do whatever he wants, and no one would ever blame him or talk to him. But the French Revolution came to change all of the kingdoms into republics, where the people have the right to ask, the people have the right to know, the people have the right to demand their own rights. They have individual human rights. So it came to change all of the old regime and come up with a totally new system and regime. The French Revolution came to ask for individual rights. Every single person in this country has his own rights, had the right to talk, had the right to say no, had the right to say yes, had the right to a humane life. Also, it asked for representative institutions. It means that every single citizen had the right to be represented. What does that mean? It means that we have the right to choose the people who speak in our behalf in front of the king or the queen or the president. So we, as a group of people, we choose one person to talk about what we need, to talk on our own behalf. And accordingly, it came with the idea of the representative institutions, that there has to be a group of people who talk about what the citizens need exactly. Not only that, also, after the French Revolution came, it spread the notions of freedom, liberty, that every single citizen is free. I am born free and I'm gonna die free. No one controls me. No one controls how I talk, how I feel, how I think. No one has any control over my mind. So it came in order to spread the fact that we're all free. So it spread the notions of liberty, equality, and fraternity. It means that we are free, we are equal, and we're brothers, not in blood, but we are brothers in patriotism, in the love of the country. And these are the notions of the revolution that Napoleon, or Napoleon Bonaparte, as we call him in France, actually spread all over the European countries. All right. But as we can see here, the French Revolution was really bloody, as you can see in this picture. It invented for the first time in Europe a machine for killing called the guillotine. The guillotine was like a blade, so they would just put the heads of the people under it and it cuts the heads off. For the first time in the French Revolution, this machine was invented to execute a lot of people, or to execute the royals, to be specific. The French Revolution was a mess, was like not only bloody, no, it was kind of unfair too, because a lot of people died in vain. I mean, a lot of people didn't do anything, just were killed because people were angry and they were killing whoever they have on the way. Let's see what happened exactly. How did the revolution start? The revolution actually started in the 18th century, and it was really violent. It started with little demonstrations down the streets. But how? Let's see that. Let's look at the pictures here. There were a lot of reasons that led this revolution to start. And you can refer, of course, to the reasons in your slides, because seems like the slides are not really working pretty well here on this video, so or on the mobile phone. Anyways, the first reason is the social structure of the West. So back then in the European society, the social structure of the West was kind of unfair. So as we can see here in the pictures, there were those aristocrats who would live a happy life, who would just live happily and have all the money, all the pleasures, all the luxurious life pleasures. Excuse me. And on the other side, there were those poor people who had nothing. So there was such an unfair social structure in the West. Like as we can see here, we had the aristocrats who throw parties every day, who have their breakfast from Spain or from like England, who dress the latest fashion ever. But on the other side, there were those poor people who had nothing to afford their lives. We used to go down the streets and beg for money, who were completely poor. And we used to call them the peasantry, French peasantry, as you can see here. Not only that, there was some system called the feudal regime. It appeared in the West for the first time, and you find it the second reason here. The feudal regime had been weakened. Feudal regime is a system that appeared, and it depends on sorry, I just have allergy, pardon me. So it depends on the fact that, for example, I have a piece of land, so I let people come and work in my piece of land, plant it, grow the crops, and then by the end of the day I give them some food for that or some money. But the people are not allowed to own the land, and I am the one who owns the land. And this is what we call the feudal regime. Feudal regime is like having some kind of unfair division of the economic process or the economic sources or the land. So I'm not allowed to own the land. I'm allowed only to work in the land. but to own the land, to have it, this is not my right. And that was a serious problem in France and all over Europe. Like, people are not allowed to own the land. Only a group of rich people are the ones who own the land, who have the land, but no one else is allowed to own it. Alright, the increasingly numerous and prosperous elite. What does that mean? Of wealthy commoners. Back at the time before the start of the French Revolution, a group of people called the bourgeoisie, you can see the word here, the bourgeoisie, appeared. Who are those bourgeoisie? Bourgeoisie is a slice or a class in society that appeared, a group of merchants, people who used to work in trade, and suddenly they became really rich, and they became part of the aristocratic class. And those people became so rich that they wanted to have power as well. They wanted to rule as well. So they started to ask for power in the country to rule, and also they have the money. Those people, the bourgeoisie, honestly, they are not really highly educated. They are not that educated. They are just some wealthy commoners. Wealthy commoners means what? And let me show you the word wealthy. Okay. And commoners, it means that they were not born rich. They became rich after they worked, for example, in some merchant process or something, so they became rich. But they are not born rich. That's why they don't have the same culture, the same customs, traditions of the rich or the aristocrats. They are not well educated. And as part of all of that, they have the money and they want to have political power as well. Of course, this caused a serious problem in France. Okay, let's look at those pictures. Next slide. In a society which is torn apart like that between the bourgeoisie and the feudal regime and the aristocrats, the poor in this society were the ones who are not privileged. So, also, one more reason for the start of the French Revolution, that Europe witnessed an unprecedented increase in its population. Suddenly, between the years 1715 and 1800, European society became very big. The number of the population was doubled. Of course, when the number of the population is doubled to be 26 million inhabitants only in France in 1789, the year of the revolution, it means that we need more food, we need more jobs, we need more homes, we need more clothes. There is a need in economy here, more demands. As, of course, all of you are business students, you do understand that more population means more demands in economy. So the larger population started to ask for more food, more drink, more consumer goods. All of this caused what we call the plight of the French peasantry. What does that mean? Okay, I will explain this idea through that picture, and I want you to understand it very well. I think you can see the picture with me. Okay, what's happening here? As you can see in this picture, how many people do we have here? Okay, yes, that's right, there are 3. Okay, so there is a man under the rock here, and there are 2 men above him, standing above him, or a lady and a gentleman above him. Okay, who are those people? This portrait is a perfect representation of the French society before the French Revolution. The guy under the rock are the poor. This guy represents the poor, the French peasantry. We call them French peasantry. The poor, the people who got nothing, the people who are beyond poverty line. They are just begging down the streets. And who are the people standing above him here? We call the guy with the big hat, as you can see here on our left. This is the judges. This is the group or the slice or the class of the judges, the people who work in the court, and the priests. You know, the priests, people who work in the church, as we said before, the religious men. Okay? And of course, on the right, the guy with the sword are the aristocrats. Okay, to put it in better way, the French society was divided into three classes, basically. Basically, three classes. First estate, second estate, and third estate. Can you see the words here? Here, if you do like this. Okay, yeah, here. First and second and third estates. What does that mean? It means, estate means a class. The first estate are the aristocrats, the rich, the people who have all the privilege in society. Second estate are the judges and the priests, the people who have also a lot of privileges and power in the French society. And then the third estate are the people, as we can see here, who are really poor and who are crushed under the stone. Okay? Wait. Okay. What else? Also, something else happened that in Europe, in slide number 5, they started to discover new gold mines in Brazil. So, new gold mines were discovered in Brazil. And of course, when you discover gold in a country, it means that the economy of this country will thrive, will become better. If you discover gold in Egypt, what will happen? The prices or the currency will become more valuable, higher. And every single thing we sell or buy every day will become more expensive. So this is what happened in Europe. When those gold mines were discovered, a recession happened in the economy. Like all of the prices became so high and the value of the currency became really high, and this of course caused a serious economic crisis. Okay. Of course, after all of this mess happened with all of this unfair classification of society and the unfair division of the classes and social injustice, people started to go down the street, as we can see here in this picture, asking for reformation, a change. We need a change. We cannot live like this anymore. We need to change all of these horrible conditions in society. And a group of philosophers started to write, and people read. They started to write about this social injustice, that the aristocrats have everything in the society, that there's no social division, there's no fair social division of economy or economic sources. And those people were Voltaire, Montesquieu, and Rousseau. These were the main French philosophers who started writing in order to explain to the French society that they are living in social injustice and they need to change that. And they started to ask for social reform. Social reform means social change, to change the social conditions in the society to a better condition. Rousseau wrote a very important quotation. You can read that in your slides. It's not that clear here. He wrote, "Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chain. One man thinks himself the master of others, but remains more of a slave than they are." It means that we are born free, but in spite of the fact that we are born free, we are being enslaved. We're dealt with as if we are slaves. And if you think that you are the master of yourself, you're completely wrong, because actually you're never the master of yourself. You are a slave of something, right? every one of us is a slave of something. Some of us are slaves of money, some of us are slaves of fortune, some of us are slaves of fame. Everyone could be a slave of something, and this is what Rousseau talked about, that we are not born slaves, we're born free. Voltaire also wrote, to hold a pen is to be at war. It means that if you start writing your own opinion about what's happening in your own country, if you start writing your own thoughts, if you start writing what you feel, what you believe, this means war, because a lot of people will not accept or even allow that. So, Rousseau and Voltaire were political philosophers who talked about the idea of freedom, mental freedom, freedom of speech, freedom of ideas, that no one had the right to control my own ideas. Okay. Just I need to make sure that the lecture is being recorded, so I'm going to double check and come back, okay? Yes. Okay. Wait. Okay, guys, let's complete here. Whoa, I love this one. Okay. This slide is a perfect representation of how the French society was before the French Revolution. This is a perfect caricature that tells us everything about how things were. So the French society is represented through a cartoon, a caricature, as you can see here, showing the 3 estates in society. So as you can see here in this cartoon, we have 4 people, 4 figures. Yeah, you can see you see the guy down, the guy who's being here hushed, like, can you see? They're like harnessing him. So this is the guy, the blindfolded guy under them in chains. This is the 3rd estate, the peasantry, the poor, okay? And the guy up, okay, we can see 3 up, okay? The guy in the back, this is the class of the judges, the people who work in the court, okay? Oh, I'm sorry, the one in the back is the aristocrat, so the aristocracy. Those people are really rich, very rich. The ones we talked about who throw parties every day, like the royal family and their friends and all of that, okay? The one in front of him with the cap, this is the priest. So this is the level of the priests and the clergy people who work in the church. And then the last one in front of him, the short, fat one, this is the one who works for the court, the judges. So between aristocrats, clergymen, and judge, we can find that who is completely wronged here, is completely driven here blindly, the poor. So this is a perfect representation of the French society before the French Revolution. Alright, so let's talk about how the revolution started. And the revolution actually didn't start out of nowhere. There were some serious issues that happened before it starts. Okay, something happened called the 2 months of prevarication. What does that mean? The king went out to the people 2 months before the revolution, and he started telling them that France has no food. France is running out of its own money. France is in a serious economic crisis, and everyone needs to go harder on himself to get along with this situation and get over it. Later on, people discovered that the king was lying to them, and they spent 2 months, and that's why we call 2 months of prevarication. Prevarication means of lying, falsehood. They spent 2 months going so hard on themselves, not eating well, having no resources, because the king took all of the French resources to himself and his family. Alright? What else? Something called the Great Fear happened. The Great Fear. The Great Fear, it means that The king, before the revolution, gathered all of the troops, all of the army around Paris. And some rumors spread, rumors means false news, spread that the king wants to take down all of the French peasantry. He wants to get rid of them. And that's what we call the Great Fear. So people, of course, panicked, and they were so afraid because they thought that he wants to get rid of the third estate of the French peasantry. And that was a great panic to everyone. So they were angry and they started the revolution before he does that. But trust me, that was a rumor. He did not intend that. But it was just a rumor that spread during that time. Of course, when they found that all of the military is gathered around Paris, they were so angry and they thought he's gonna kill them all. So they started the revolution. Okay. The revolution started in the prison we call the Bastille. The Bastille is the most horrible prison you can ever read about in European history. It's just like, those kind of prisons like Abu Ghraib and those prisons like Abu Ghraib in Iraq or Iraq. So, Bastille prison was a horrible prison where French people or poor French peasantry would go inside and never get out. So for example, if you steal like an apple, they would take you into this prison for like 10 years. Or you steal a loaf of bread, you go there and you never get out. People were so mistreated inside the bars of this prison, behind the bars. People were never allowed to see the sunlight again. So it was a perfect example of royal tyranny. Royal tyranny means, and the word is here, royal tyranny means royal injustice. The injustice of the king and the queen were represented in this prison. The first thing that happened is that the revolution started from this prison and people started to open the doors to everyone to get out. And you can imagine how those people who were kept behind the bars in this prison for so many years would look like when they go out into the outer world. How would they look like? What kind of people are we gonna meet here? So angry, revengeful, hateful. They hate everyone. They wanna take revenge on those people who kept them inside all of those years. And then the revolution started down the streets, as we can see here, with more violent riots and demonstrations where people started to break everything, and then all of the mob, all of the French people headed to the castle, the royal castle where the king and the queen live, where Marie Antoinette and her family are living. And as we can see here, of course, the bourgeoisie, the aristocrats started to panic because everyone started to attack them from the French peasantry or the peasants, and the Great Fear started. And this is a real portrait from Marie Antoinette's palace where all of the peasants attack her and she's standing between them and her own children. What will happen? How things will go? Who is Marie Antoinette? And what's gonna be her own fate? What will happen with her own king or her own husband? Who is Napoleon Bonaparte? That's what we're gonna know next chapter, inshallah. Thank you so much, guys. Hope you enjoyed it.